There comes a moment in combat when orders no longer matter. When extraction is denied. When survival becomes a calculation. For Staff Sergeant Daniel Walker, that moment meant choosing who would leave and who would stay behind. The desert was silent, but not empty. It was the kind of silence that comes before contact, heavy and alert, pressing against the senses of every trained soldier who has learned to fear quiet more than noise. Staff Sergeant Daniel Walker lay prone behind a collapsed mud wall, his rifle aligned with the darkness ahead. The night air carried the smell of dust and oil, and above him, the Middle Eastern sky stretched wide, filled with cold, distant stars. He checked his watch, 0217 hours. They were late. Missions were never supposed to run late. The operation briefing had labeled this as a low-risk insertion. Secure a suspected weapons transit compound. Confirm intelligence. Extract before dawn. Clean. Controlled. Predictable. Daniel had been in uniform long enough to understand that the word simple rarely survived first contact. 8 men moved with him that night, trained, disciplined, silent. These were not strangers. They were brothers forged through deployment, exhaustion, and shared fear. Each of them trusted the man in front of them with his life. The breach went wrong immediately. The first rooms were clear, too clear, and Daniel felt the unease tighten in his chest just seconds before the explosion tore through the compound. The blast slammed him into concrete, rattling his helmet and disorienting his senses. Gunfire erupted from multiple directions. This was not a lightly defended site. This was a prepared kill zone. Training took over as Daniel returned fire, dragged himself to cover, and began issuing commands through the chaos. The night was no longer silent, it was alive with muzzle flashes and screams. Minutes blurred together into fragments of movement and sound. Daniel checked his team. Corporal Reyes was down, breathing but unresponsive. Another voice disappeared from the radio mid-sentence. Ammunition was running low. Extraction was requested and denied. Weather grounded air support. Reinforcements were hours away. The tactical reality was brutal and clear. They were isolated, wounded, and outnumbered. Daniel calculated distance, fire lanes, casualty movement, every variable drilled into him over years of service. The numbers did not favor survival. It was then, pressed into the sand with blood on his gloves and dust in his lungs, that the realization surfaced. Not as panic. Not as fear. But as certainty. I am not going home. He tried to reject it, to push it away like every soldier does when confronted with finality. But the thought remained. Calm. Unmovable. His mind drifted briefly to his wife, Emily, and the argument they never resolved. To his daughter, Lily, waving through airport glass. Promises made with full confidence. Promises that would now remain unfinished. Daniel crawled to Reyes and applied pressure to the wound. The young soldier's eyes opened briefly. Did we mess this up, Sarge? Reyes whispered. Daniel answered without hesitation. No. We're getting out. It was a lie delivered with purpose. Daniel already knew the truth. Moving Reyes would slow the team. Staying together meant being overrun. The mission had shifted from extraction to survival. And survival would require sacrifice. Command confirmed extraction remained unavailable. Daniel didn't argue. He had already made the decision. There was no announcement. No dramatic declaration. Just orders issued with calm authority. He repositioned his men, redistributed ammunition, and created the illusion of strength where there was none. Reyes was secured for evacuation. Daniel assigned himself rear security. Every step his team took away from him felt heavier than the last. This was the moment he understood fully. This was where his role ended. Enemy pressure increased as Daniel opened fire, deliberately drawing attention to himself. He fired with precision, conserving rounds, switching weapons when one ran dry. His world narrowed to breathing, sight alignment, and trigger discipline. Somewhere in the distance, he heard rotor blades, helicopters approaching. He knew they weren't coming for him. That was fine. His mission now was simple: delay, deny, protect. As his ammunition dwindled and the firing slowed, a strange calm settled over Daniel. The stars above were unchanged, indifferent to human conflict. He leaned against the wall, chest heaving, muscles burning. He thought again of home, not with regret, but with clarity. He had not chosen how this mission began, but he had chosen how it would end. And that was enough. When the final shots came, Daniel did not resist them. In his last moments, he was no longer in the desert. He was a boy again, lying beside his father, counting stars under an open sky. Later, others would call him a hero. His name would be spoken at ceremonies. A folded flag would be handed to his family. But the truth was simpler than that. When the moment came, when he knew he was not coming home, he stayed, so others could leave.